You were told to build a legacy. You weren't just told to make a living, you were told to build a legacy. From the moment you stepped into adulthood, the message was clear. Work hard, save, build something, leave it behind for your children. It wasn't just financial advice, it was a belief, a purpose, a quiet vow whispered to yourself at night. I will struggle so they don't have to. I'll carry the weight so they can walk free. I'll start from zero so they can start from something. It sounded noble, and in many ways it is. Because few things are more beautiful than a parent's desire to give their child a better life. But what if I told you that this beautiful belief has been used against you? What if I told you that the system was designed very intentionally so that your hard work would barely touch the surface while theirs would quietly build empires? The dream you were sold. They called it generational wealth. The dream was simple. You work hard now. You sacrifice comfort. You invest even if it hurts. You teach your kids to be responsible. And one day, they'll stand on your shoulders. It's a dream millions of families around the world hold in their hearts. A dream that becomes the very reason they get up in the morning. But here's the hard truth. For most people, that dream never arrives. The legacy of struggle. Let's be honest. What have most families really inherited over the last few generations? Not wealth, not property, not trust funds, not safety. What gets passed down more often is unpaid debts, generational anxiety, emotional suppression, financial ignorance, a work ethic rooted in survival, not freedom. You didn't inherit a foundation. You inherited a fight. And now you're told to pass something better forward, but no one ever gave you the tools to begin with. The noble lie. This is the great deception. They made building a legacy sound like something you could do with nothing but hustle. They told you hard work was the bridge between poverty and prosperity. They told you sacrifice was the strategy. They told you love was enough. But what they didn't tell you is that the game was never built for you to win with effort alone. Because the real legacy isn't just what you earn, it's what you keep. And most importantly, what you can protect long after you're gone. Why your love isn't the problem. If you're reading this thinking, I've tried everything, I've worked 2 jobs, I've paid off loans, I've saved when I could, why does it still feel like I'm failing? Let me be clear. It's not because you didn't love your children enough. It's because love alone doesn't beat a rigged system. Your effort was real, your devotion was real, but the rules of the game? Hidden, twisted, tilted. You were promised that if you built a life, it would turn into a legacy. What you weren't told is that legacies aren't built by labor. They're built by legal structure, financial knowledge, and systemic power. The quiet reality. You may not have inherited wealth, but you did inherit a mindset, survival. And now you're trying to turn survival into stability. You're trying to turn crumbs into inheritance. You're trying to pass down more than what you got. But here's the thing no one ever told you. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from below it. Because while you were growing up with hand-me-down clothes and whispered warnings about debt, other families were growing up with trusts, legal protection, tax shelters, and tutors who taught them how to use all of it. Stop blaming yourself. You've been told that you're not doing enough, not budgeting enough, not investing enough, not planning enough, not reading enough, not sacrificing enough. But what if I told you, you've done more than enough? You just haven't been given the truth. The inheritance trap begins here. This is where it starts, with a belief, a promise, a hope that what you're doing today will create something better tomorrow. But unless you learn how to protect it, preserve it, and pass it, what you're leaving behind won't be a legacy. It'll be a trap for your children to fall into next. And that's the truth no one dares say out loud. The lie of upward wealth. You were told that life is a ladder, that each generation could climb a little higher, that if your parents worked in factories, you could work in an office, that if you worked in an office, your children could become business owners, and their children, wealthy, free, and fulfilled. It's a beautiful story, but it's a lie, and a profitable one. Because for millions of families around the world, the so-called ladder isn't real. It's a treadmill. The ladder theory that keeps you chasing. From childhood, you were taught that effort equals reward. Work hard in school, get a good job. Be responsible with money, build savings. Buy a home, grow your net worth. Leave something behind, your children will be ahead. It all sounds so simple, so fair, so hopeful. But no one told you what happens when wages stagnate while inflation climbs. Medical bills erase your savings overnight. Asset markets are rigged and manipulated. And the opportunities you were promised are locked behind invisible doors. Generation after generation, the illusion fades. Look around. How many stories do you know that sound like this? My parents owned a home. I rent a one-bedroom. My grandparents had land. It's gone now. My family worked 30 years in one job. I've had 4 and 5 years, and none are stable. My father never made much, but at least he didn't owe a cent. I'm drowning in student debt. This isn't just nostalgia. It's evidence. Evidence that upward mobility is not just slowing down, it's reversing. And yet, the story persists. We're still told that the problem is us, that we're lazy, that we don't hustle hard enough, that we want too much, too fast, that we're entitled. But what if the truth is this? You've been chasing a promise that was never real for people like you. The design was never meant to include you. Here's the bitter truth. Upward wealth works, but only for those who already have a head start. It's not a matter of effort, it's a matter of starting position. If you begin your adult life with no debt, a financial cushion, a safety net from parents, connections in key industries, legal and financial education, inheritance waiting for you, then yes, you can climb. But if you start with student loans, rent due next week, no fallback plan, no guidance, no generational assets, a family that depends on you for survival, then every step up costs you double, and every setback hits 10 times harder. That's not mobility, that's managed struggle. Why the system sells the illusion. So why keep the lie alive? Simple. Control. The myth of upward wealth keeps you working longer, it keeps you consuming more, keeps you hopeful, but exhausted, keeps you blaming yourself, not the system, keeps you quiet, obedient, grateful for crumbs. Because if the dream is still alive in your mind, you won't rebel. You'll just push harder, bleed more, sleep less, spend less on yourself, all in the name of a better future. And when it doesn't arrive, you'll whisper, I guess I didn't try hard enough. Not, maybe the system was built to fail me. The numbers they don't want you to see. In most Western countries, over 70% of family wealth is lost by the second generation, and 90% by the third. A child born into poverty has less than 10% chance of reaching the top income tier, no matter how well they perform academically. Nearly 60% of millennials expect to be poorer than their parents. And in many countries, wealth inequality is greater now than it was during the Great Depression. These aren't accidents. They're signals. Signals that the dream isn't dying, it's being buried. The cost of believing. What happens when you believe in a lie for too long? You stop questioning. You stop resisting. You start punishing yourself instead. You take on more hours. You accept burnout as normal. You blame your anxiety on yourself, not the crushing weight of generational pressure. You tell yourself, this is just how life is. But what if it isn't? What if this version of life, this endless hustle with no reward, wasn't the default? What if it was designed? The psychological trap. Here's how it works. You believe in the dream of upward mobility. You pour your energy, time, and soul into chasing it. When it doesn't work, you don't question the dream, you question yourself. That guilt fuels more effort, more sacrifice, more silence. The cycle continues, and your children inherit the same mindset. It's not just financial, it's psychological inheritance. And it's how systemic inequality stays invisible, by convincing you it's your fault. Mirror check. Are you climbing or spinning? Ask yourself, have your savings grown in the last 5 years? Do you feel closer to financial peace? Are your children set up to begin life without debt? Do you own anything that will grow in value after you're gone? If you said no to most of these, you're not failing, you're in the trap. The trap of believing a broken promise. The trap of thinking movement equals progress. The trap of assuming pain must equal purpose. What comes next? This isn't about hopelessness, it's about clarity. Because when you see the illusion for what it is, you stop chasing it blindly. You start asking better questions. You start learning the real rules. You start building something, not just with love, but with strategy. Because love is beautiful, but love alone doesn't transfer wealth. Not in this world, not under these laws, not inside this system. What middle-class families really pass down. You were told that if you made it to the middle class, you were safe. That you had escaped the instability of poverty. That your children would start ahead of where you began. That middle class meant progress, security, respect. But let's pause for a moment. What does the modern middle class actually inherit? When the last heartbeat of a parent fades, what's truly left behind? It's rarely trust funds, rarely deeds to multiple properties, rarely investment portfolios. What's left is something harder to talk about, something heavier, something invisible, but crushing. The myth of the middle-class safety net. The middle class is supposed to be the buffer zone, not poor enough to suffer, not rich enough to thrive, just comfortable. But comfort is fragile. One medical emergency, one job loss, one divorce, one funeral. And suddenly, that comfort reveals itself for what it really was, a careful balancing act built on borrowed time. And when that balance collapses, guess who inherits the pieces? Not the state, not the bank. Your children. The real inheritance, unfinished business. Let's talk about what really gets passed down in most middle-class families. Unpaid medical bills, mortgages still in probate, credit card balances no one knew about, a home that hasn't been properly transferred or protected, no will, no trust, no clear instructions. And emotionally, guilt, shame, pressure to do better without knowing how.
The silent fear. Am I going to fail like they did? This isn't inheritance, it's burden wrapped in silence. The emotional economy. You see, wealth isn't just about money, it's about emotional bandwidth. A child born into wealth doesn't just receive money, they receive clarity, confidence, mental space. A child born into a struggling middle-class family, they often inherit the pressure to fix everything, the unspoken expectations, the trauma of watching parents struggle silently, the confusion of being left with chaos masked as legacy. They aren't handed keys, they're handed a puzzle box with missing pieces and told to build something beautiful. The last box you leave behind. Imagine this. You pass away. Your child opens your closet, your drawers, your files. They find an insurance policy, maybe. A mortgage, but no title transfer. A will that was never notarized. A few sentimental items. A debt they didn't expect. They stand there holding a box that doesn't say, "You're safe now." It says, "Figure it out." The burden of the unspoken. Here's the cruel irony. Most middle-class parents don't want to leave behind a mess. They love their children. They sacrifice everything for them. But love without preparation becomes a trap. And silence becomes a curse. Because children don't just inherit your possessions, they inherit your financial decisions, your secrets, your fears, and your mistakes. The cycle looks like this. Generation 1 escapes poverty, becomes middle class, works hard, builds modest assets, but has no real plan, dies unexpectedly. Family scrambles, sells property, pays debts. Generation 2 starts from scratch again, repeats the cycle with even less stability. And the most tragic part? Everyone thinks they're the first to go through it, because no one talks about it. Not at dinner, not at school, not in books. Only in hushed tones. Only after funerals. Inheriting fear, not freedom. The true inheritance for many middle-class children isn't capital, it's caution. Don't dream too big, don't take risks, play it safe, work hard. Don't expect help, be grateful for what you have. It sounds wise, it sounds practical, but often it's just the echo of fear passed down from those who never felt secure themselves. And so another generation grows up believing that struggle is noble and wealth is unreachable. The gradual erosion of legacy. What happens when there is some wealth to pass down? Let's say there's a small house, a bit of savings, maybe a car. But there's no trust to protect it. There's no estate plan. The taxes hit. The siblings fight. The assets get split, drained, or sold. The next generation walks away with a few $1,000s and a lot of tension. Whatever was built vanishes. Not because it wasn't enough, but because it wasn't protected. Love isn't enough. This is the hard truth. You can love your children with your whole heart. You can work yourself to the bone. You can give them everything you never had. But if you don't plan, if you don't learn how to protect what you build, if you don't talk about what they'll inherit, then your love becomes a weight they don't know how to carry. And they'll sit in silence one day, wondering, did they mean to leave me this burden? Or did they just not know any better? What needs to change? The middle class doesn't need more hustle. It needs more truth. Truth about how wealth is lost. Truth about how to protect it. truth about legal structures, not just life advice. Truth about emotional wounds, not just money plans. Because until that truth becomes common knowledge, the inheritance will always be incomplete, and the cycle will always reset.
The weight of love, when sacrifice becomes a trap. You loved them, so you gave up your needs. You delayed your dreams. You skipped vacations. You stayed in jobs that drained you. You wore the same coat for 5 winters. You did it gladly because love made it all feel worth it. But here's the tragedy. When love is poured into a system that offers no return, that love becomes weight, not wings. And instead of setting your children free, you may have unintentionally chained them to your pain. Love alone isn't a wealth plan. Let's say this out loud. Love is not a strategy. It is a force, a fuel, a fire. But love alone doesn't protect assets. It doesn't bypass taxes. It doesn't shield your home from legal complications. It doesn't explain to your children what to do when you're gone. You can love your family endlessly and still leave them in chaos. Not because you meant to, but because you thought your sacrifice would be enough. The burden of being the one who gave everything. Many parents fall into a dangerous mindset. As long as I work hard and give everything, it will all work out. But here's what giving everything often looks like. No emergency savings, no financial education, no time to plan or learn, no conversations about death, wills, or inheritance. No emotional tools passed to children, just exhaustion. Your love is real, but it's being converted into stress the moment you're gone. The psychology of martyrdom. We're taught that the more we suffer for our children, the more we love them. But suffering isn't always service. Sometimes it's a distraction from doing the harder thing, talking openly, planning intentionally, facing mortality, asking for help, building systems instead of just making sacrifices. Because martyrdom feels noble, but often it just leaves behind a trail of silence and confusion. When sacrifice replaces structure, here's the hidden danger. When you give everything away for your kids, but never show them how you gave it, they don't inherit knowledge. They inherit debt, emotional and financial. They don't know the bills you paid. They don't know the decisions you made. They don't know how fragile the balance was. They just know that when you were gone, nothing was secure. And so they carry that weight, confused. If my parents gave everything for me, why does it feel like I'm starting from nothing? The things left unsaid. Most families don't talk about death, or money, or mistakes, or regrets. We wrap everything in silence and call it respect. But silence isn't protection. It's postponement. It's pushing the responsibility to the next generation and hoping they figure it out. And when they can't, they feel like they've failed, when the truth is they were never prepared to succeed. The emotional inheritance. Ask yourself, what did you inherit emotionally from your parents? Guilt? Pressure to succeed? The need to prove their sacrifice wasn't wasted? Fear of disappointing them? Shame about not being good with money? These emotional legacies run deeper than financial ones, and if left unchecked, they become chains your children won't even see until they're wrapped around their choices. Love as control. Here's a painful truth. Sometimes we love our children so much that we never let them carry responsibility until it's too late.
We think we're protecting them by doing everything for them, by never involving them in the hard stuff, by making all the decisions in secret. But then one day we're gone, and they're left with a mess they were never trained to handle. They don't know where the accounts are. They don't know the passwords. They don't know what you wanted. They don't know what to do. And worst of all, they feel like they're letting you down when they struggle. That's not love. That's unintentional harm. The mirror moment. If you were gone tomorrow, would your child say, "My parent showed me how to be prepared"? Or, "My parent did everything alone, and I have no idea what to do now"? Would they inherit peace or panic? Would your love feel like a gift or a ghost that haunts them with unanswered questions? Turning love into legacy. Love is powerful, but for it to become a true legacy, it needs direction. Write the will. Set up the trust. Teach your children what you know. Be honest about what you don't. Share your struggles. Break the silence. Normalize preparation. Make wealth a conversation, not a myth. Because a parent's love should not be a mystery. It should be a map. Build the path now. You can still change the story. Your love doesn't have to become a trap. It can become a foundation, a guide, a shield. But only if you take the next step. Turn sacrifice into structure. Turn silence into conversation. Turn love into legacy. Because one day, your child will open the box you leave behind. Let what's inside say, "I didn't just love you. I prepared for you. I believed in your future. And now, it's yours to carry, with strength, not with sorrow." The inheritance trap defined. They don't call it a trap. They call it tradition. They call it legacy. They call it responsibility, duty, love. But beneath the noble words, beneath the generational dreams and cultural pride, there's something much colder, something designed, something silent, something systemic. It's the trap you never saw coming. And by the time you do, it's already sprung. Not on you, but on the very people you were trying to protect. What is the inheritance trap? It's simple, painfully so. The inheritance trap is the cycle where love and sacrifice are passed down without structure, without tools, without protection, leaving the next generation with weight instead of wealth. It's not just about money. It's about what happens when families believe they've passed something down, but in reality, they've passed a mess, a myth, or a burden. And worst of all, they don't know they did it. How the trap works, step by step. A parent sacrifices everything for their children. They work long hours. They save what they can. They give up their own dreams. They don't receive financial education. No one teaches them how to build generational wealth, only how to survive. They believe their love and effort are enough, so they don't plan legally, don't structure assets, don't prepare documents, don't talk about death. They pass away or grow old. Suddenly, the weight shifts to the next generation. The children receive chaos, unclear finances, unpaid debts, property stuck in court, no instructions, no preparation. The children feel guilty. They assume it's their fault they can't handle it. They feel like they've let their parents down. They vowed to do better, but they inherit the same silence, the same lack of tools, the same myth. And so the cycle begins again. Why it's so invisible? The trap is powerful because it wears the mask of love. No one wants to believe their parents left behind a mess. No one wants to think of their family's hard work as a failure. No one wants to admit they're drowning in responsibilities they didn't ask for. So they say nothing. They try that figure it out. They take the pain silently, just like their parents did. This is how traps become traditions. It feels like a legacy, but it's a setup. Let's break the illusion once and for all. If your child inherits an unpaid mortgage, a funeral bill, a car loan, a vague will written on a napkin, a property that wasn't properly transferred, a business without clear ownership, or worse, nothing but emotional pressure, that is not a legacy. It is a liability, wrapped in grief, delivered as love, and expected to be seen as a gift. That's the trap.
The most dangerous part? You never see it as a trap. You call it doing your best, leaving something behind, helping the kids get started, making sure they're okay. But what if the truth is this? Without the right planning, what you leave behind might be the very thing that holds them back. Not because you failed, but because you weren't told what needed to be done. Because the system never taught you. Because no one wants regular families to know how wealth really works. The trap is why wealth disappears. Here's a fact no one likes to talk about. 90% of families lose their wealth by the third generation. Why? Because wealth without structure disappears. Because love without legal power fades. Because financial literacy is not inherited, it must be taught. The inheritance trap ensures that even if you do manage to build something, it won't last, unless you fight the trap deliberately. What you think you're leaving and what you actually leave. You believe you're leaving your children a better future, but sometimes what they actually receive is something else entirely. You think you're leaving them peace of mind, but what they feel is confusion, pressure, and unanswered questions. You think you're leaving them a home to hold on to, but the house gets tied up in paperwork, legal issues, and taxes, and may have to be sold just to settle everything. You think you're leaving a legacy, but they're left with emotional weight, the kind that whispers, make sure you don't waste what they gave up their life for, even when they have no idea how to move forward. Not because you didn't love them, not because you didn't try, but because no one taught you how to turn love into structure, how to make it last beyond your lifetime. Recognizing the trap is the first step out. So now you know, the trap exists. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to stop it here. Because once you recognize the game, you stop playing it on someone else's terms. You stop thinking in hope. You start thinking in structure. You stop planning emotionally. You start planning strategically. And most of all, you stop the next generation from inheriting pain disguised as purpose. A new definition of legacy. Legacy isn't what you leave when you die, a pile of possessions, a vague hope that they'll be okay. Legacy is the clarity you give while you're alive, the structure you leave behind, the wisdom you teach before you go, the love you convert into protection. Because true legacy isn't just remembered, it's relied on.
Dynastic wealth versus working class hope. You work to survive. They work to preserve. That's the difference. You put money away hoping it'll grow. They put money in vehicles designed to protect it for generations. You sacrifice your present for your child's future. They structure their wealth so that no child ever starts from zero. This is the divide no one talks about. Not rich versus poor in terms of income, but structured, dynastic wealth versus unstructured, unstable hope. What is dynastic wealth? Dynastic wealth isn't just being rich. It's the kind of wealth that's designed to survive time. It means that someone in the family generations ago created a financial structure so strong that taxes barely touched it, laws worked in their favor, assets grew automatically, and each new heir had a head start, not a handicap. It's not just about money, it's about ownership, protection, and permanence. Their wealth doesn't get divided up and spent. It gets recycled, shielded, grown, and passed down intact. Tools the rich use that you've never been taught. Let's break it down. Rich families don't just leave cash in a bank. They use systems like trust funds to control how money is used after they're gone. Family LLCs to protect assets from lawsuits or taxes. Irrevocable trusts to separate wealth from personal liability. Private foundations to give charitably while keeping influence and tax benefits. Generational life insurance to create liquidity for estate transfers. Estate attorneys and wealth planners to update these tools every year. Meanwhile, what do most working-class families rely on? A savings account. A life insurance policy, maybe. A will, if they remember to write one. Hope. Why are you always starting over? Every generation in a working-class family is expected to get a job, save, pay off debt, maybe buy a house, retire with a little left over. But that cycle never breaks the ground. There's nothing to pass on that truly protects the next generation. So what happens? You build, you die, they sell everything to cover the costs, and they start again from scratch. This isn't inheritance, it's repetition, and it's exhausting. The real difference is ownership versus control. Here's something no one teaches you. The rich don't just own things, they control them. They don't put assets in their own name. They use entities and trusts to separate ownership from exposure. Their house, owned by a trust. Their business, managed through an LLC. Their investments, held in a family foundation. So even if something goes wrong, nothing truly gets taken away. But in a working-class family, if you get sued, you lose everything. If you die without a will, the state decides who gets what. If a child divorces, they may lose inherited assets. If you're sick and uninsured, your home may be sold to cover medical bills. Same country, same laws, different access. Why hope without structure is a setup. Hope is beautiful, but hope without tools is just vulnerability in disguise. You can tell your kids, be smart with money, work hard, don't waste what we gave you. But if you don't give them legal protection, education, and a system they can step into, you're not giving them a legacy. You're giving them a puzzle with no picture on the box. And that's not fair to them or to you. They have generations of momentum. You have to create yours from zero. That's the cruel part. They're born into momentum. You're born into friction. And then you're told you're failing because you're not moving fast enough. But how can you sprint while also carrying the emotional and financial weight of generations before you? So what can you do? You may not have a family office or a team of lawyers, but you can begin the shift. Start learning the tools, trusts, wills, beneficiary designations, life insurance, asset protection basics. Start teaching your children what you weren't taught, how taxes work, what debt means, why ownership matters, how to read a financial document, why systems always win over feelings. And most of all, stop thinking in terms of money. Start thinking in terms of structure, because that's what dynastic wealth really is. Structure that lasts longer than the person who built it. Legal tools the rich use that you were never taught. You were told to save money. They were told to protect it. You were told to get a job and retire. They were taught to build structures that outlive them. And while you were figuring out how to write a simple will, they were sitting with estate attorneys designing legal shields so powerful that their money couldn't be touched for generations. This is not about intelligence, it's about access. Because the wealthiest families don't just earn more, they play by a different set of rules. Why legal tools are more powerful than hard work. Let's say you work 40 years, save diligently, and manage to leave behind $300,000 in assets. You feel proud. You should. But if you don't know how to protect it legally, here's what could happen. Taxes eat 30% right away. Probate court freezes access for months, sometimes years. Creditors make claims. Family members argue. Your children get less than half of what you left behind. Or worse, they receive it in full and lose it within 5 years because no one taught them how to manage it. It's not just about how much you leave, it's about how you leave it. And that's where legal tools come in. Tool number 1, the trust. A trust is one of the most powerful wealth preservation tools in the world. While most working-class families rely on wills, the rich use trusts because they offer privacy. Trusts don't go through public court like wills do. Control. You decide how and when assets are distributed. Protection from lawsuits, divorces, even your heir's own bad decisions. Tax advantages. Trusts can shield your assets from estate taxes. Think of a trust like a vault. It holds your wealth securely even after you're gone. Tool number 2, the Family Limited Liability Company, LLC. The Family Limited Liability Company is another secret of dynastic wealth. Rich families use it to hold property, investments, or businesses under one unified structure. Centralize control while allowing shared ownership. Protect assets from outside lawsuits or financial disputes. Teach younger generations how to manage wealth without giving them full control too soon. It's not flashy, but it's foundational. While you're naming your kids on the deed to your house, they're putting everything inside an entity that can't be touched easily. Tool number 3, the Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust, ILIT. Most people think life insurance is simple. If I die, my family gets paid. But the rich take it further. They use life insurance inside a trust, known as an ILIT, to avoid estate taxes on the payout, ensure the money is distributed over time, not all at once, protect the death benefit from lawsuits, creditors, or poor financial decisions, provide tax-free liquidity to pay other inheritance costs. It's not just about leaving money, it's about leaving it protected. Tool number 4, the pour-over will. Even when trusts are used, wealthy families don't neglect the basics. A pour-over will is a legal document that ensures any assets accidentally left outside the trust automatically pour over into it at death. This closes loopholes, it keeps everything consolidated, and it ensures that no asset gets lost or disputed. While others are scrambling through messy estates, their paperwork moves like clockwork. Tool number 5, power of attorney and healthcare directives. Wealthy families don't just plan for death, they plan for incapacity. That's why they set up financial power of attorney, let someone manage money if they're unable. Medical power of attorney ensures their wishes are respected. Living wills documents their end-of-life decisions clearly. These tools prevent chaos, court battles, and family conflict because nothing destroys an inheritance faster than confusion and disagreement. Tool number 6, gifting strategies and tax optimization. While you're worried about earning more, they're focused on giving better, strategically. They use annual gift exclusions to transfer wealth tax-free every year, 529 plans and education trusts to pay for schooling, grantor retained annuity trusts, or GRATs, to pass on appreciating assets with minimal taxes, charitable trusts to reduce taxable estates while still helping causes they care about. To them, taxes are not a cost, they're a puzzle to solve, and they solve it legally, effectively, and permanently. Why you've never heard of these? Because no one teaches you. Not in school, not in job training, not in community financial literacy programs. Why? Because a population that doesn't understand protection stays vulnerable, and vulnerability keeps you dependent on jobs, on loans, on government, on systems you don't control. Understanding these tools is how the wealthy stay wealthy, even at death. What can you do today? You don't need millions to start protecting what you have. Here's how to begin. Write a will. Even a simple one is better than none. Set beneficiaries on all accounts, bank, retirement, insurance. Talk to an estate attorney. Ask about revocable trusts and basic protections. Start a folder with key documents, titles, debts, insurance, passwords. Teach your children what you've learned. Don't leave them guessing. Because here's the truth. The people who love you don't just need your money. They need your preparation. They need your clarity. They need your wisdom. Structured and ready. How the system was built to protect their gold, not yours. You were told that the system was fair, that laws exist to protect everyone equally, that success is available to anyone who works for it. But if that were true, why do the wealthy get richer in recessions? Why do their assets grow faster than yours even when the economy crashes? Why do they always seem to keep what they have while you're constantly fighting to hold on to scraps? The answer is uncomfortable, but it's real. The system wasn't built to protect your wealth. It was built to protect theirs. The myth of neutral systems. They tell you, the law treats everyone equally. Taxes are fair if you follow the rules. You just need to be disciplined. Start small, build over time. But those statements ignore one truth. The rules were not designed with your life in mind. They were written, lobbied, funded, and enforced by people who already had wealth and wanted to keep it. How the wealthy influence the rules. Behind every financial law you think is standard, there are armies of lobbyists working to make sure those laws protect elite families. Here's how it works. Billionaire donors influence legislation. Tax loopholes get quietly inserted into bills. Regulations are written to sound fair, but carry exceptions. Politicians sell the illusion of justice while maintaining the structure of imbalance. While you're busy figuring out how to write a will, they're in rooms where estate tax law is being crafted to exclude them entirely. The hidden architecture of advantage. Let's look at some examples. Tax codes. The tax system rewards capital gains from investments more than earned income from jobs. Long-term ownership of assets, not short-term hustle. Real estate depreciation and business expenses, things most workers don't even have access to. You pay taxes on every paycheck. They pay taxes after their money has multiplied, and often at a lower rate. Probate laws. You die without a trust? Your estate goes through court. That costs your family time, money, and stress. They die with layered trusts, holding companies, and power of attorney setups. Their heirs get instant access, quietly, privately, and legally shielded. Bankruptcy protections. When the rich fail, they restructure. When the poor fail, they start over, with debt, ruined credit, and trauma. Protection versus punishment. Let's be clear, the system isn't broken. It works exactly as intended, just not for you. It punishes lack of knowledge, missed paperwork, minor mistakes, financial emergencies, and it protects structured wealth, legal shielding, strategic tax planning, intergenerational transfer. It doesn't care how hard you worked. It cares whether your money was formatted properly, while you always feel one step behind. You get penalized for not understanding the fine print, not filing on time, not knowing which forms to fill, not hiring the right advisor, not being born into a family that could teach you. Meanwhile, they operate in a world where every move is reviewed by professionals. Every asset is layered with protection. Every tax season is planned years in advance. You're playing defense. They're playing ownership and control. The system is not personal. It's positional. When you're inside the structure, the system works for you. When you're outside, it works on you. It's not that the law hates the poor, it's that it was never built for them. And so, unless you build your own protective structure, you are always exposed. Fairness versus familiarity. What feels unfair to you feels normal to them. Why? Because they were raised in the language of protection. They were taught how to defer taxes, how to use leverage, how to title assets, how to hire legal shields, how to think 3 generations ahead. You were taught how to write a resume, how to follow the rules, how to show up on time, how never to ask for too much, how to be grateful for what you have. Same system, different playbooks. How they stay safe while you stay stuck. Every time a crisis hits, a recession, a pandemic, a market crash, the gap widens. You lose your job. They restructure their portfolio. You drain your savings. They buy discounted assets. You fall behind. They fortify their position. And then you're told, work harder next time. What you can do about it. You may not be able to change the system, but you can stop being unprotected inside it. Start asking new questions. How can I protect my assets legally? What tools are available, even to someone with modest income? Who can teach me what my parents didn't know? How do I move from reaction to structure? And teach your children not to obey the system blindly, but to understand how it functions and how to move within it safely. Because knowledge is the first form of defense. The system is not on your side, but now you know. And once you know, you can stop playing the game the way they hope you will. You can stop blaming yourself. You can stop feeling like you're always behind. You can start building shields instead of chasing shortcuts. Because the rich didn't get lucky, they got structured. And so can you.
Why saving, working, and hoping isn't enough. You've done everything you were told. You got a job. You showed up on time. You saved what you could. You tried not to spend more than you earned. You believed that if you worked hard and stayed humble, things would eventually get better. You didn't want much, just enough to be safe, to take care of your family, to leave behind something for your children. But now you're tired, and you're starting to realize it's not working. Not because you're weak, not because you failed, but because you were taught to use tools that were never meant to build wealth, only to survive without it. Why saving isn't what it used to be. You were told, save money, it will grow over time.
But here's the truth. Interest rates on savings accounts, 0.01% to 1% at best. Inflation, 3 to 7% per year on average. Real purchasing power decreases the longer you save. So what's actually happening? You're losing money slowly and calling it being responsible. While your savings sit still, the price of housing, healthcare, food, and education rise faster than your bank balance ever could. Saving is important, but saving alone won't protect you. Why working hard isn't enough anymore. You were taught that work is noble, and it is. But in today's system, wages have barely risen in 20 years. Job security is disappearing. Benefits are shrinking. One illness or layoff can destroy decades of effort. You work harder, but feel poorer. You work longer, but fall further behind. You stay loyal, but the company doesn't. This isn't laziness. This is a system where effort isn't the currency of success. Ownership is. Why hoping is dangerous when it replaces strategy. Hope keeps you going, but hope without knowledge becomes delusion, and delusion becomes debt. You hope things will work out. You hope the next job will pay more. You hope your kids will figure it out. You hope you'll learn about finances someday. But hope is not a plan, and in a rigged system, hope without structure leads to heartbreak, because while you're hoping, the wealthy are planning. The cycle they never told you about. Here's the trap. You work to earn just enough. You save, but inflation eats it. You hope that your kids will have it easier. You die without legal structure or protection. Your children inherit stress instead of stability. They repeat the process, believing it's normal.
And no one ever stops to ask, is this really the best we can do? The truth they don't want you to hear. Saving without investing equals stagnation. Working without ownership equals exploitation. Hoping without planning equals vulnerability. This isn't about blaming you. It's about freeing you from a set of beliefs that were designed to keep you in place. Because if they can convince you that you just need to save more, you just need to work harder, you just need to stay positive, then you'll never look up and ask, why does the system reward the people who don't do any of those things? What actually builds wealth? Let's be brutally honest. The people who grow wealth don't do it with good intentions, long hours, silent sacrifice. They do it with assets, not income. Structures, not effort. Knowledge, not tradition. Protection, not hope. They understand that a business can earn while you sleep. A rental property can pay you monthly for years. An investment account, structured right, can grow tax-free. A trust can outlive you and protect everything you built. These are not secrets, they're systems. You were just never invited into the room where they're taught. So what do you do now? You stop believing that struggle is a virtue. You stop measuring your worth by your exhaustion. You stop hoping for better and start building it intentionally. Start by asking, am I protected? Is my money growing or just sitting? Does my family know what to do if something happens to me? Am I passing down tools or just tasks? Am I teaching hope or strategy? Because your children won't remember how hard you worked. They'll remember whether you left them prepared. The shift begins with one decision. You don't have to give up on hope. You just need to anchor it in action. Hope is the fire. Structure is the foundation.
And when you combine both, you build something that lasts. So let's rewrite the formula. Don't just work, own something. Don't just save, invest wisely. Don't just hope, learn and teach. Don't just sacrifice, protect what you build. Because if you don't change the plan, your children will inherit the same struggle, wrapped in silence once again. The psychology of financial guilt and generational shame. You look at your bank account and feel a knot in your stomach. You think about the bills, the debt, the future, and something heavy rises in your chest. It's not just fear, it's not just stress, it's guilt. And underneath that guilt is shame. Because somewhere along the way, you began to believe, if I don't succeed financially, I've failed my family. If I can't pass anything down, I've let everyone down. But what if I told you you're carrying shame for a battle that was never fair to begin with? Where the guilt begins. Guilt creeps in when you feel like you could have done more. It whispers, why didn't I invest sooner? Why didn't I buy a house when prices were low? Why am I still living paycheck to paycheck at this age? Why can't I give my children more than my parents gave me? It's a quiet, personal blame game. You hold yourself responsible for things no one taught you how to do, and society reinforces it by rewarding the illusion of success while ignoring the reality of structural disadvantage. Repeat the generational cycle of shame. Here's how the trap deepens. Your parents struggled, but didn't talk about it. You watched them work hard, suffer silently, and try their best. You promised yourself you would do better, but no one gave you the tools. So you work hard, suffer silently, and try your best again. And now you feel shame, not just for your own life, but for not breaking the cycle. That's not just financial pressure, that's inherited emotional debt, and it's crushing. The invisible burden you carry. Most people think the weight is just bills, mortgages, credit scores, college tuition, medical costs. But beneath all of that is emotional weight. I don't want my kids to struggle like I did. I want to make my parents proud. I should be further along by now. Everyone else seems to be doing better than me. These thoughts don't just drain your energy, they cloud your judgment, paralyze your decisions, and keep you from asking for help because you feel like you're supposed to already have the answers. Shame turns silence into a curse. When you feel ashamed of your finances, what do? You hide. You don't talk about money with your kids. You pretend everything is fine. You tell yourself you'll deal with it later.
You avoid difficult conversations with your spouse or family. But that silence, it becomes a second inheritance. You don't just pass down money or lack of it. You pass down the inability to talk about it. Your children grow up sensing stress, but never understanding it. So they repeat the same patterns, wrapped in the same shame. Here's the part no one tells you. The guilt you feel was planted on purpose. Because if you blame yourself, you won't question the system. You won't demand better education. You won't ask why the rules are hidden. You'll just keep working harder, hoping harder, and dying quieter. That's how inequality stays invisible. It convinces you it's your fault. But you were never taught about trusts. You were never taught about tax strategies. You were never shown how to protect assets, how to title property, how to build generational stability. So, how could you be expected to know? You're not a failure. You're the first chapter of change. You may not pass down millions, but you can pass down truth. You can be the one who says, "This is what I didn't know. Here's what I've learned the hard way. Let me show you what I wish someone showed me." We're not hiding money talk in this house anymore. I'm not ashamed of struggling. I'm proud I survived. And now we're going to build something better, together. Because legacies don't start with money. They start with honesty. And healing begins when you stop apologizing for what was never your fault. Unlock, let go of the shame, keep the wisdom. Guilt will keep you stuck. Shame will keep you silent. But wisdom, that's yours now, and it's the most valuable thing you can pass on. It says, "I see the trap now. I may have been caught in it, but I will not be the reason my children stay there." What you can do now: talk openly with your family about money. No shame, no secrets. Share your mistakes, not as failures, but as life lessons. Let go of comparison. Their journey isn't yours. Forgive yourself. You've done the best you could with what you knew. Commit to learning forward, even if you feel late. Give your children emotional permission to be honest with you about money. That's the beginning of generational wealth, truth. You are the turning point. You may not be the one who inherits the empire, but you can be the one who ends the silence, who confronts the shame, who breaks the cycle. That is legacy, and it's worth more than gold. When your children inherit trauma instead of trust, you thought you were leaving them something good. A house, a little money, a few valuables, maybe even a paid-off car. But what if what they really inherited was the trauma you never meant to pass down? The fear you carried, the stress you never spoke about, the pressure to be okay even when nothing was. Because here's the truth no one prepares you for. Children don't just inherit your assets, they inherit your unfinished emotions. The unseen inheritance. We think inheritance is a bank account, a document, a deed, a number. But inheritance is also the way they saw you react to bills, the way you panicked when rent was due, the silence after financial arguments, the exhausted look in your eyes when you got home from work, the shame in your voice when they asked, "Can we afford it?" They saw it. They felt it, even if you never said a word. And now that weight lives in them, quiet, buried, and unnamed. The emotional cost of financial insecurity. When you grow up watching your parents struggle financially, a part of you learns, I must never be a burden. Money is a source of fear. Success equals survival. Asking for help is weakness. Talking about money causes pain. This becomes your inner script, your subconscious inheritance. And unless it's rewritten, it gets passed on, again. So when your child becomes an adult, what do they carry? Not just a bank balance, but a belief system. When there's no trust, only tension. Let's imagine what happens when a parent dies without structure. No will, no trust, no plan, no clear instructions. What follows? Siblings argue. Assets get frozen. Funeral costs create panic. Debt collectors start calling. One child takes control, others feel excluded. Resentment grows. Family breaks. What could have been a moment of remembrance becomes a battlefield. And the children don't just lose a parent, they lose each other. Trust is not just legal, it's emotional. You might think, I don't have enough to need a trust. But this isn't just about money. This is about trusting your children to carry what you leave behind without destroying themselves or each other.
because trust, in the deepest sense, means I've prepared for you. I've thought ahead for your sake. You won't have to guess what I wanted. You can grieve without fighting. You are not alone in this. That's what a real legacy sounds like. From scarcity to scar tissue. Financial trauma creates behavioral patterns that echo for decades. Children raised in scarcity often overwork themselves to feel worthy, avoid financial conversations completely, feel constant anxiety about not having enough, become hyper-independent even when they need help, tie their self-worth to productivity and income, push success while secretly fearing failure. They may never realize this isn't just who they are, it's what they inherited. And unless someone breaks the silence, they'll pass it on too. Trauma hides in the way we parent. A parent who never felt safe with money may overgive even when they're drowning in debt, underteach, thinking they'll figure it out, avoid legal preparation, afraid of talking about death, shame their kids for wanting more, panic when things go off budget, apologize too much, or demand too much. And children raised in that environment grow up confused. They don't see a lack of love. They feel it completely. But they don't know how to carry what they were given because love was never paired with protection. Inheritance of unspoken pain. One of the most common phrases I hear from adults in financial therapy is, "I didn't know how bad it was until they died." That's when they discover the debts, the hidden accounts, the lack of preparation, the stress that was never talked about, the assets that got lost, the missed opportunities, the confusion. And what do they feel? Guilt, anger, pressure, sadness, isolation, deep, lingering resentment. Not just toward the system, but sometimes toward the very people they loved most. You can break the pattern. Here's the beauty in all of this. You can be the one who stops it. By being honest now, by preparing early, by saying the hard things out loud, by teaching your children how to build and protect, by showing them that money should not be a mystery or a monster, by proving that love is not just sacrifice, it's strategy. Because when you leave trust, not trauma, your children inherit peace, clarity, confidence, understanding, and most of all, freedom. Legacy is what you leave inside them. Your children may forget the number in the bank account. They may forget what furniture you owned. They may sell the house. They may move far away. But they will never forget how you made them feel. Did you prepare them? Did you leave peace or panic? Did you say, "I love you," with actions, not just words? Did you show them that they deserve structure, security, and strength? Because that is the real inheritance, and it lasts longer than any dollar ever could. The cycle of starting over, again and again. You were raised to believe in progress, that each generation would rise a little higher, that your children would start where you ended, that with enough sacrifice, love, and hard work, you could break the chain. But one day, you look at the numbers, at your life, at your children's lives, and a quiet truth settles in your bones. We're starting over again. What starting over looks like. It doesn't always scream, it whispers. We don't have enough to send you to college. The house got sold to cover medical bills. We didn't have a will, so it's in probate. We tried to save, but there was always an emergency. Your uncle is contesting the estate. We have to go back to renting. You'll have to figure it out on your own. You don't just inherit less, you inherit instability. and you're expected to be grateful for even that. From one generation's effort to the next generation's burden. Let's be honest. Your parents worked hard. You're working hard. And still, you feel like you're starting from zero. Why? Because no one taught them how to build a foundation, only how to survive. So they gave you love, grit, pride, sacrifice, memories, but not legal protection, financial education, structured assets, clear guidance, ownership. And now you're doing your best to hold everything together while building from the ground up, again. The price of not breaking the cycle. Each time a family starts over, knowledge is lost, assets are scattered, emotional pressure increases, time is wasted rebuilding what could have been protected. Hope gets replaced by quiet resignation. And over time, this cycle becomes normal. We've always been this way. We're just not like them. People like us don't inherit things. Just work hard and you'll be okay. But hard work isn't enough when you're constantly rebuilding what others are simply managing.
Why the rich don't start over? It's not because they're smarter. It's because they structured their lives around not starting from scratch. Their children are added to trusts, not just birthday cards. Learn about compound interest before they learn algebra. Understand credit before they have a job. Inherit properties with clear titles, not probate problems. Receive guidance, not just pressure. In their world, starting over is a strategic choice, not a forced default. In yours, it's a cycle disguised as fate. The danger of making do. Too many families survive in a state of quiet emergency. Just enough rent, just enough groceries, just enough savings until the next setback, just enough time until another family member needs help. And in this cycle, legacy doesn't get built. It gets delayed, postponed, forgotten, until it becomes a myth. You tell your kids, "I'm doing this for you," but what they actually inherit is the expectation to start over again. Why the cycle feels inescapable? Because no one ever taught you how to shield wealth from taxes, how to pass down assets smoothly, how to talk about death before it's too late, how to legally protect your wishes, how to build structure, not just stability. So you work, you save, you hope, and then you die. And your family starts over once again, just like you did. You are the pivot point. But here's the truth. You can be the last to start from scratch. You can be the first to say, "I am not going to die with just good intentions. I'm going to put my knowledge in writing. I'm going to explain what I've learned. I'm going to create systems, not just sacrifices. I'm going to give my kids a starting point, not just a story. Because someone has to break the loop. And if you don't, no one will." What it takes to end the cycle. Learn how the system works, even if it feels intimidating. The tools exist, they're just not advertised to people like you. Build structure before you build size. Even modest assets can be protected and passed down properly. Have the conversations others avoided. Talk about death, debt, property, wishes, inheritance. Think 30 years ahead, not for you, but for the ones you love. Be the one who stops surviving and starts designing, because that's what wealthy families have done for generations. Not because they're better, but because someone taught them how. You can't rewrite the past, but you can rebuild the foundation. You may not inherit much, but you can pass down something stronger, a system, a process, a mindset, a plan. Because the next generation doesn't need to be rich, they just need not to start over. Why the next generation feels behind before they begin.
They haven't even had a chance to fail, and they already feel like they're losing. They haven't made a single financial mistake, and they already carry anxiety about money. They're just starting life, but deep down they feel like they're already behind. And you wonder why? Because when you grow up without a foundation, you don't just start from zero, you start from below it. The emotional weight of a head start you never had. Imagine two children on the same track. One starts with a paid-off car, no student debt, an inheritance or trust, a family that can help with rent or emergencies, confidence from watching financial success at home. The other starts with a student loan, no assets, parents living paycheck to paycheck, pressure to help their family instead of ask for help, constant exposure to stress and sacrifice. And now ask yourself, who feels free to dream? Who feels pressure to survive? Who can take risks? Who's too afraid to try? That's what we mean by feeling behind before you begin. When you grow up without a foundation, you don't just start from zero, you start from below it. When you grow up watching struggle, you internalize it. Children from working-class families learn early, money is tight, we can't afford that. Don't ask for too much. Wait until the bills are paid. Be careful, always save, never splurge. Life is hard, get used to it. Even if they don't understand the numbers, they understand the energy. They feel the tension, they feel the fear, they feel the emotional cost of survival. And when they finally step into adulthood, that energy follows them. The silent shame of not having. Even when they succeed on the outside, get into college, land a job, rent an apartment, there's a background shame most people never see. I don't have a family safety net. If something goes wrong, I'm on my own. I can't ask my parents for help. I have to figure everything out by myself. I'm falling behind and I can't tell anyone. This shame isn't just financial, it's psychological isolation, and it steals confidence before life even begins. Why, starting later becomes a lifetime of catching up. Let's break it down. They graduate already in debt. They delay buying a home. They don't get early investing advice. They take jobs out of necessity, not growth. They can't afford unpaid internships or time off. They rent longer. They start saving later. They retire with less. And all the while, they compare themselves to peers who inherited a runway they never even knew existed. The lie of we all start equal. We love to say we all have the same 24 hours. Everyone starts from somewhere. Just work hard and you'll get ahead. But we don't all start from the same position. Some start with a family-owned home, financial advice over dinner, paid education, a network of connections, backup plans for backup plans. Others start with broken systems, emotional trauma, no map, no help, no margin for error. And the worst part, they're told, if you're not succeeding, it must be your fault. That's how the shame gets passed on, quietly, invisibly, destructively. Repeat. Generational delay becomes generational damage. When you start late, everything costs more. You invest later, less time to grow wealth. You buy later, higher prices. You retire later, more exhaustion. You build legacy later, and often never. And your children? They watch, they absorb, they inherit the same delay, and the cycle continues. Unlock. What the next generation needs isn't money, it's leverage. You don't have to leave them millions, but if you can leave them a plan, a will, a protected asset, a mindset of confidence, a debt-free education, a conversation about how the system works,
That alone puts them years ahead of where you started. Because what they really need is not a gift, but a foundation. Something solid, something thought out, something that says, you're not starting alone, you're standing on something. BI, what you can do to change their starting line. Acknowledge the truth. They are starting behind. That's not your fault, but it's your power to shift. Normalize money conversations. Remove the fear. Talk openly. Protect what little you have, even a car, a life policy, or a small account. Protect it with legal tools. Teach them how systems work: taxes, credit, inheritance, ownership. Invest in them emotionally. Tell them they're not broken, they're just unarmed. Because the day your child walks into adulthood and says, "I'm ready, not afraid," is the day you broke the curse. BI, the most powerful legacy you can give isn't a house, isn't a savings account, isn't even a business. It's this: you don't have to feel behind, because I made sure you were seen, prepared, and protected. You're not catching up, you're continuing. That's not just legacy, that's healing. How society profits from your generosity. You were taught to give. Give to your children, give to your family, give to your job, give to your community. Give until it hurts, and then give a little more. You were told that selflessness is virtue, that sacrifice is love, that if you give enough, life will reward you. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Society celebrates your generosity because it benefits from your depletion. They praise your giving spirit while quietly extracting everything they can. The system runs on your sacrifice. Let's break it down. You work overtime to cover rising costs. They profit from your labor without raising your wage. You donate to help others in need. Meanwhile, billionaires get tax breaks for philanthropy that protects their wealth. You pay your taxes loyally, but the ultra-rich find loopholes, shifting the burden to people like you. You care for aging parents, sick family, struggling kids, and the government avoids building proper safety nets, knowing you'll fill the gap. You buy gifts, support fundraisers, tip extra, do your part, while corporations raise prices and cut employee benefits. In short, your kindness is profitable. Your generosity makes the machine run, and your burnout is someone else's income. They praise what keeps you powerless. You've heard the compliments. You're so strong. You're always there for everyone. You never complain. You'd give the shirt off your back. It sounds sweet, but underneath those words is an expectation. Keep giving, keep sacrificing, keep staying small. We need you just like this. Because if you ever stopped and asked, "Who's pouring into me?" the illusion would break. The invisible cost of always giving. What do you lose when you give without limits? Your savings, your time, your health, your rest, your dreams, your ability to say no, your future. You give so much to others that you have nothing left to protect yourself. And then, when crisis hits, the system steps back. The people you helped may not show up, and you're left thinking, was it worth it? Generosity without boundaries equals free labor. Let's be real. When you cover someone else's rent, the landlord still gets paid. When you stay late at work just to help, the company avoids hiring extra staff. When you take care of family without support, the healthcare system saves money.
When you tutor your kids, your school district gets funding without needing to improve. And all the while, you're told you're doing the right thing. Yes, you are, but they're profiting from your pain. Why you're conditioned to give without limits. It starts early. Be a good kid. Don't ask for too much. Be a good student. Help your classmates. Be a good sibling. Share everything. Be a good worker. Go the extra mile. Be a good parent. Sacrifice your dreams. Be a good citizen. Pay your taxes. Follow the rules. You're taught to give, but not to protect, not to preserve, not to build for yourself. Because a person who always gives rarely has time to rise. They know you'll fill the gaps, so they leave them there. Why fix the system when your generosity covers the cracks? The government knows you'll care for your parents. Your job knows you'll stay late without extra pay. The school system knows you'll tutor your kids after hours. Your extended family knows you'll be the one who helps. So they plan around you. They depend on your exhaustion and then praise you for being strong. It's manipulation dressed as admiration. You're not just generous, you're exhausted. There's a difference between giving by choice and being conditioned to give until you break. And most people never realize they weren't born generous. They were trained to believe that giving equals goodness, even when it leads to collapse. What does healthy generosity look like? Healthy generosity sounds like, I give, but not at the cost of my stability. I help, but I have boundaries. I love, but I don't abandon myself in the process. I support others, but I'm building protection for myself too. I say no when I need to. Because the truth is, you can't leave a legacy if you're constantly emptying yourself for everyone else. Redefining generosity. Build, then bless. Imagine this. You set up your own financial structure. You protect your assets legally. You build a plan, a will, a trust. You grow your wealth and teach your children. And then you give from a place of strength. That's not selfish. That's sustainable. Because real generosity doesn't deplete. It overflows. And the world doesn't need more exhausted martyrs. It needs empowered givers.
The silence between generations, what we never say. They loved you. They worked for you. They sacrificed for you. But they never told you how. They never explained the debt, never showed you the bills, never talked about the fear, never mentioned the missed opportunities, never said where the money went or how to protect it when it's gone. And now, you're trying to build a future with no map, no guide, just fragments of effort and a deep, aching silence. The legacy of silence. Silence can feel like safety, but it often becomes a curse. When parents don't talk about their struggles, their financial mistakes, their legal plans or lack of them, their true fears about money or death, children are left to fill in the blanks, to guess, to wonder, to worry in secret. They don't inherit knowledge, they inherit confusion. Why we don't talk about it. There are reasons for the silence. I don't want to burden them. They're too young to understand. It's not their business. Talking about money feels shameful. If I ignore it, maybe it'll work itself out. I never learned how to talk about it either. But silence doesn't protect. It postpones pain. It pushes hard truths into the future until someone else has to deal with them. And by then, it's too late.
What silence creates. When no one talks about money, legacy, or death, no one knows where the documents are. No one understands the debts involved. No one prepares for the funeral costs. No one can access bank accounts. No one knows your wishes. No one knows who owns what. And no one is emotionally ready for what's coming. You don't just lose a loved one. You lose direction. You lose time. You lose peace. The cultural pressure to stay silent. In many families, especially in immigrant, working class, or collectivist cultures, there's an unspoken rule. Don't talk about money, don't question authority, don't speak of death. You're taught to be strong, be quiet, be grateful, figure it out when the time comes. But here's the truth. What you avoid today becomes your child's crisis tomorrow. And that's not tradition, that's trauma with good manners.
The emotional impact on the next generation. When no one speaks, children grow up feeling afraid to ask questions, guilty for not knowing, ashamed of financial stress, overwhelmed by sudden responsibility, isolated when grief collides with confusion. They don't feel empowered. They feel like they're failing someone who's no longer here, because silence leaves space for guilt, and guilt becomes the loudest inheritance of all. What if we told the truth? Imagine what would change if we simply said, "Here's how much debt I'm in. I never learned this either, but I want to try. If something happens to me, here's what you need to know. Here's where the documents are. This is what I wish someone had told me when I was your age. I don't want to leave you with a mess. Let's fix it together." These conversations don't make you weak. They make you brave. They don't pass down burden. They pass down awareness. Breaking the silence is a gift. When you talk, truly talk about your financial reality, your plans, your fears. You normalize these topics. You reduce the fear. You build connection. You prevent confusion. You make space for shared solutions. You let your children ask, "What happens if?" and you answer with love, not secrecy. Because secrets protect no one, but shared knowledge, that's power. How to start the conversation. Start small. I've been thinking about what happens if I'm not here one day. Use honesty, not fear. I want to make sure you're not left guessing. Don't wait for perfection. You don't need all the answers to start talking. Invite collaboration. Let's build this plan together. Write it down. Where is the will, the passwords, the insurance? Make it accessible. Repeat often. Make these talks normal, not a one-time event. Legacy is what you say before you leave. Yes, it's money. Yes, it's assets. But more than anything, legacy is the words you give them while you're still here. It's your voice, your wisdom, your truth. It's you saying, "I love you enough to prepare you. I trust you enough to tell you. I believe in you enough to teach you." Because silence is not strength, and speaking up might be the most powerful inheritance you'll ever give.
What real legacy requires beyond hard work? You've worked your entire life. You've stayed late, skipped vacations, cut back, gave up, held on. And now, when someone asks you what legacy you'll leave behind, you quietly whisper to yourself, "I gave them everything I had." But here's the question no one dares to ask. Is giving everything you have enough? Because in today's world, hard work alone doesn't build a legacy, at least not one that lasts. The myth of "if I just work hard enough." You were taught that hard work is moral, that sacrifice is noble, that staying quiet and grinding will eventually pay off. But here's what hard work doesn't do on its own. It doesn't protect assets from taxes. It doesn't guarantee intergenerational stability. It doesn't bypass probate. It doesn't teach your children how to manage wealth. It doesn't create systems that outlive you. Hard work creates income, but legacy requires design. What real legacy is built on? Let's redefine legacy, not as a wish, but as a system. Real legacy is built on 4 pillars. 1. Clarity. You must know what you have, where it is, who it's for, how it will be passed down. You can't leave a mess and call it love. Clarity means nothing is left to chance or interpretation. 2. Legal structure. Without legal tools, everything is vulnerable. That means a will, a trust, especially if you own property or want to avoid probate, beneficiary designations, power of attorney, healthcare directives, a clear document binder your family can access when needed. Structure is the bridge between your intentions and their protection. 3. Knowledge transfer. You've learned a lot through struggle, mistakes, and sacrifice. But if that wisdom dies with you, it's lost forever. Legacy means teaching your children how money works, explaining your financial decisions, showing them how to avoid your mistakes, giving them permission to ask questions, sharing the emotional truth behind the numbers, because what they understand, they can carry. 4. Continuity. Legacy is not a moment, it's a motion. You need systems that can sustain themselves, passive income, investment plans, insurance coverage, business succession, ongoing conversations about money, life, and death. Without continuity, all they inherit is a snapshot, not a structure. Why hard work without these pillars backfires. If you only give your children money without wisdom, they lose it. Assets without legal clarity, they fight over it. Love without planning, they struggle with guilt. Silence instead of guidance, they make the same mistakes. Then what you leave behind becomes a weight, not a gift. Because legacy isn't how hard you worked, it's how well you prepared. Shift from sacrifice to strategy. Too many people think love means I'll give up everything for you. But legacy says I'll build something that lives beyond me for you. That means saying no to things that drain your future, learning what you were never taught, investing in knowledge, not just hustle, taking time to plan, not just push, thinking 3 generations ahead, because when sacrifice is all you know, you leave no room for sustainability. The formula has changed. In the past, legacy may have meant owning land, leaving gold, passing down a name. But in today's world, legacy means protecting your family from legal confusion, preserving assets from unnecessary taxes, equipping your children with confidence and competence, creating a clear roadmap that says, this is what I built, this is how I protected it, this is how you carry it forward. Your legacy starts now, not later. Legacy isn't created in your final years. It starts now, in the questions you ask, the plans you make, and the truths you finally tell. You don't need millions. You don't need perfection. You just need intention, clarity, courage, and the belief that your effort deserves to last. Because real legacy isn't about money. It's about what continues after you stop showing up. What your children need most. They don't just need you to work hard, they need you to work wisely. They don't just need money, they need a map. They don't just need love, they need proof that love planned ahead. They don't need a bigger sacrifice,
They need a stronger system.
Break the cycle intentionally. Learn what you were never taught. Some families inherit wealth. Others inherit work. But most inherit wounds they don't understand. Cycles don't break by accident. They break on purpose. By someone who dares to say, "This ends with me." And if that someone is you, then this part is for you. Brain, step 1. Realize what you weren't taught. Let's be honest. Most of us grew up learning how to obey, how to work hard, how to survive. But we were never taught how money flows through systems, how taxes can be legally avoided, not evaded, how trusts protect assets from lawsuits and loss, how the wealthy think differently, not because they're smarter, but because they were taught things we weren't. They were raised with playbooks. We were raised with pressure. Book stack. Step 2. Re-educate yourself. No one's coming to do it for you. No school will hand you this knowledge. No boss will pay you to learn it. No government wants you fluent in it. So you must become your own teacher. Start small. Read one book about money laws. Watch one video about asset protection. Talk to someone who's done it before. Ask uncomfortable questions like, what happens to my money if I die tomorrow? Will my kids even know what to do with what I leave behind? Do I have a plan or just a hope? This is how the cycle breaks, not with blame, but with boldness. Brick wall. Step 3. Build your foundation. You don't need to be rich to build a system. You just need to be clear and consistent. Here's your beginner's toolkit. Pen, write a will. Even a basic one gives direction. Lock, create a simple trust. Start with what you have. File, label your accounts. Make access easier for your family. Document, leave instructions. A one-page letter explaining everything can save years of confusion. Conversation, talk openly. Don't wait until it's too late to explain what you're building and why. This isn't about complexity, it's about clarity. Speech bubble. Step 4. Break the silence. You were told money is a private matter, that it's rude to talk about inheritance, that they'll figure it out when the time comes. But silence doesn't protect, it poisons. Because when we don't talk about money, death, mistakes, fears, regrets, we end up repeating the same patterns, generation after generation, without knowing why. Break the silence by saying, here's what I wish someone told me. Here's what I'm doing differently. And here's how you can continue it. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Step 5. Teach forward what you had to learn the hard way. You paid a price to learn what you know. Don't let that price be wasted. Pass it on. Tell your children what you wish you had done differently. Walk them through your financial thinking. Show them your documents. Don't hide them. Explain the why behind every decision. Because the most powerful legacy isn't money. It's understanding. When your children know why you did what you did, they'll know how to carry it further. You are the disruption the system fears. You were never meant to know this. The system thrives on your confusion, compliance, hoping instead of planning, working instead of strategizing, giving everything but never organizing anything. But now that you know, you are dangerous to the design. You are the one who starts the change, not by shouting, not by blaming, but by building, quietly, strategically, boldly. What happens when the cycle breaks? When you break the cycle, the next generation stops starting from zero. Financial conversations stop feeling taboo. Money becomes a tool, not a terror.
Decisions are made with vision, not reaction. Your legacy becomes a platform, not just a memory. You become the reason your family's story changes forever. Not because you had more, but because you knew more, and you had the courage to act on it. Final thought. Don't wait for permission. Nobody's going to say, "Now's the perfect time to plan your legacy." There will always be distractions, there will always be uncertainty, there will always be a reason to delay. But here's the truth. You can't protect your legacy later. You can only build it now. So start. Even if you're afraid, even if it's messy, even if it feels small. Because one person, you, deciding to learn what was never taught, can change everything that comes after.
How to talk to your children about money without guilt, fear, or shame. You're not just leaving them something, you're leaving them a story. Teach them how to read it. There's something scarier than losing money. It's watching the people you love not know what to do with it. We fear having the talk about inheritance, wills, savings, taxes, because it feels cold, too businesslike, too heavy for our children to carry. But silence isn't kindness. Silence is abandonment wrapped in politeness. If you don't talk about it, someone else will. The internet, the bank, the government, the lawyers, the funeral home. And by then, it's too late. Why we don't talk. You're afraid your kids will judge your past decisions. You feel ashamed you haven't saved enough. You don't want to scare them. You're waiting for the right time. You were taught money was private or taboo. But money isn't just numbers, it's a language. And if you don't teach your children to speak it, they'll grow up fluent in fear. What to say and how to say it. Let's break it down into real, human, loving ways to start. 1. Start with honesty, not perfection. Say something like, "I wish someone had told me about money when I was younger. No one did, so I want to be that person for you." This disarms their fear. It opens a safe space. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be willing to start. 2. Explain the why behind your decisions. Here's why we own this home. Here's why I started saving in this account. Here's why I didn't invest in certain things. Help them understand that every choice had a reason, even if it wasn't perfect, because clarity trumps perfection. 3. Be transparent about what exists. Show them where your accounts are, where your will is kept, who your lawyer or advisor is, what insurances you have, what debts still remain. It might feel vulnerable, but this is the difference between a legacy and a mystery. 4. Share the mistakes too. This is powerful. Say, "I want you to learn from what I did right and what I didn't. Here's what I regret. Here's what I wish I had done differently." They won't see you as weak. They'll see you as real, and they'll love you for your courage. 5. Make it a two-way conversation. Ask, "What do you feel about money right now? What worries you about the future? Is there anything you want to ask me, but we're afraid to?" Let them speak. Let them be part of the vision, because a legacy that's passed down with silence often gets dropped. But a legacy shared in dialogue gets carried forward with pride. What you're really giving them, you're not just giving them a house, a savings account, a few documents. You're giving them context, confidence, permission to plan, emotional peace. You're saying, "You won't have to figure this out in the dark. I'm lighting the path for you." That's not just money, that's freedom. Start small, but start soon.
You don't need a big sit-down meeting. Try a quiet car ride, a walk together, a dinner where you open up gently, leaving a written note with your thoughts. The point is not when or how. The point is to begin. Teach them how to handle inheritance emotionally. Inheritance is not just legal, it's emotional. Prepare them by saying, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to grieve and still move forward. What I leave you is not a burden, it's a blessing, but only if you treat it with care. Let them know that the wealth is a tool, not a test. That they don't have to prove they're worthy. They just have to continue what love began. Final thought, your voice is the first inheritance. Before the money, before the assets, before the legal forms. What they inherit first is your voice. What you taught, what you stood for, what you believed about responsibility and trust. So don't wait until you're gone. Speak while you're still here. And say the words they'll hold on to long after you're gone. This is for you. I built it with love, and I trust you to carry it forward. That's the legacy they'll never forget.
The hidden fees of dying poor. How systems profit from your silence. If you don't decide where your money goes, someone else already has. Death is expensive. And if you die without a plan, there are people, entire systems, waiting to cash in. It starts the moment your heart stops and ends when your family is left with nothing but debt, confusion, and a mountain of paperwork. This isn't an accident. It's a design. Who profits when you die without a plan? Let's break it down. 1. The government, probate, and inheritance tax. If you don't have a will, the state decides who gets what. This process is called probate. Probate isn't free. It can eat up 5 to 10% of your estate, sometimes more. Then comes inheritance tax. Even modest estates may trigger taxes depending on your country or region. The more your heirs inherit, the more the state may take. Your legacy? Reduced to a taxable event. 2. Lawyers and courts. The longer probate drags on, the more legal fees pile up. Lawyers charge hourly. Courts charge filing fees. Mediators, appraisers, and executors all take their slice. A $100,000 estate can become $70,000 overnight without a single mistake. That's if there's no family conflict. If there is, the costs multiply. 3. Banks and financial institutions. Banks freeze accounts when you die. If your family isn't on the accounts, they must go through paperwork, delays, and sometimes court orders. While your loved ones grieve, banks collect fees, account maintenance, document retrieval, late payments, unclaimed assets fees. Money you saved for your children slowly bleeds out in silence. 4. Hospitals and end-of-life care. If you die in the hospital, expect a final bill. ICU care, medications, life support, ambulance fees. Even if you had insurance, there are deductibles and out-of-network costs. And if your family can't pay, the hospital will still try to collect from your estate. In death, you become a line item on a billing sheet. 5. Funeral homes. They know your family is grieving. They also know grief makes people vulnerable. That's when the upselling begins. Premium caskets, deluxe floral packages, embalming and viewing services, cemetery plot upgrades. What started as a $5,000 funeral can quickly become $15,000 or more. And if your family can't afford it, they'll borrow. They'll use credit cards. They'll go into debt to honor you. Your death becomes their financial trauma. The real trap, your silence, is their opportunity.
You didn't mean to leave them with a mess, but by not preparing, you left them vulnerable. And the system? It's built to take advantage of that. No will, that's profit. No life insurance, that's profit. No joint accounts, that's delay and profit. No instructions, that's confusion and profit. You see the pattern. They don't just inherit your assets, they inherit your chaos. Your children shouldn't have to fight the court to access your bank account, argue over who gets the house, dig through boxes looking for your insurance policy, borrow money to bury you. They should be grieving you, not cleaning up your silence. What preparation really means, it doesn't mean having $1 million estate. It means writing a clear will, designating power of attorney, adding beneficiaries to accounts, making a plan for your funeral, and telling your family where everything is. It's not just paperwork, it's protection. It's a final act of love. It's not too late to take back control. Even if you've never thought about these things, you can start today. Start small, one document, one conversation, one beneficiary update. Then keep going, because the more you do now, the less your family will suffer later. Your death shouldn't be a payday for strangers, but if you don't act, it will be. And the saddest part, you'll never know. You'll leave believing you did your best, but in reality, the wealth you worked for will be picked apart by the system you never saw coming. Closing thought. You spent your life working to build something. Don't let it be unwritten, unguarded, and undone by the time you leave. Because when you die without a plan, you don't just leave behind money, you leave behind a mess. And someone you love will pay for it.
The real legacy, it was never about money. You thought you were building wealth, but what they needed was something else. You've been told to work hard, to sacrifice, to give everything you have so your children won't struggle the way you did. That's noble, it's powerful, it's beautiful, but also, it's incomplete. Because real legacy isn't just about what you leave, it's about what you teach, what you protect, and what you break, so they don't have to carry it anymore. You thought it was the house. You spent 30 years paying for it, mortgage after mortgage, every tile chosen with care, every dent in the wall filled with memories. But when you're gone, what if the house becomes a burden? What if your kids don't need a place, but a plan? You thought it was the money. You saved. You denied yourself. You skipped vacations, new clothes, small pleasures, so they could have more. But what if money without wisdom is a curse? What if the real gift isn't the amount, but the instructions on how to carry it, grow it, protect it? You thought it was the name, that the family name would be enough, that your reputation, your sacrifices, your legacy would speak for itself. But names fade, and legacies without structure get erased. If you don't write it down, if you don't make it legal, if you don't prepare them, then all that honor disappears into confusion and courtrooms. So, what is a real legacy? It's the insurance policy you set up, even when no one else saw the need. It's the written will that removes confusion and prevents division. It's the honest conversation you have with your children about what to expect and how to lead when you're no longer here. It's not the gold, it's the map. It's the wisdom. It's the clarity. It's the freedom from repeating your struggle. The generational curse isn't poverty, it's silence. Too many families pass down secrets, shame, stress, broken financial habits, debt disguised as gifts, trauma dressed as duty, and the next generation thinks it's normal. They suffer in silence. They repeat the cycle. They wear your pain like armor, never questioning why. That's not legacy, that's a loop. And loops need to be broken.
What if you were never meant to win the old game? The truth is painful. The system wasn't built for you. The rules weren't written with your family in mind. The doors weren't made to open for your name. But still, here you are. Still trying, still building, still believing. And that alone is power. Because now, you're not just working hard, you're waking up. And once you see the game, you can choose to stop playing by their rules. Rewrite the ending. You don't have to leave millions. You just have to leave clarity. Where things are, who gets what, why you made the choices you did, and how they can move forward without guilt or confusion. It's not about controlling from beyond the grave. It's about freeing them from the chaos you inherited. The legacy they'll remember. They won't remember the car you drove. They won't remember your bank balance. They won't even remember every lesson you tried to teach them. But they will remember that you made their life a little easier, that you left them prepared, that you broke the silence, that you turned your love into structure. That is a legacy that outlives money. You were told to build wealth, to build a legacy, to leave something behind. But now, you know the truth. The richest families aren't rich because they worked harder. They're rich because they were taught how to protect what they built. And now, so can you. Not because the system wants you to win, but because you chose to stop playing blind. You chose to prepare, to document, to speak, to protect. You chose to break the trap. And maybe, just maybe, your legacy will be the moment the cycle ends.